Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a Sunday session of Live at the Waterhole. It's me, Kenneth Gamble, your guide for the session. I hope we have some wonderful sightings today. We've started off the Hyde and Wangi National Park with some wonderful Abdams storks, quite similar to the word Adam, but their name is Abdams. Very beautiful migratory storks that are making their way down south. And just a reminder to please send through your questions, comments through the various social media links. It's a live and interactive show, and it's wonderful engaging in some of these questions and discussions. You can see these Abdam storks are taking it quite easy on this Sunday morning, nearly afternoon, just preening and grooming themselves after their migration that they're taking part in. Obviously this is not their final destination. For some it may be, but many will be heading south onto southern Africa. I haven't seen them back in my local area, Hoedspruit, yet. I'm eagerly awaiting their return. They're quite beautiful and pretty storks. It was fantastic to start the show with some birds. Just sends me to my happy place. I'm always ecstatic when we have some beautiful and unique birds to watch on the streams. I know last weekend we were spoiled with bee eaters, among other birds, but it's very cool to see these migratory storks. They do look quite similar to the black stork. Your differentiation would come in the size and the fact that they tend to be in larger groups. Obviously we can only see 3 in this circumstance. I'm sure there is probably a few more in or around the water source. Question from Nash asking where are Abdam storks from. So they are quite widespread throughout Africa. They obviously come down to southern Africa with the onset of the rains and the change of seasons after food, etc. They morph, or they tend to be around Eastern Africa, Senegal, that part of the continent. Sorry, I nearly said country. And then they move south and join us in the summer times here. It's quite interesting. I was now reading up a bit on specifically their migratory routes, but yeah, it's one could almost liken it to somewhat of the wildebeest migration in the Masai Mara. But they head east in about the May-August time, and thereafter they start heading south. And obviously the The whole point of this migratory route is to coincide with the rains wherever they go, that there's insect outbreaks, etc. But yeah, very stunning birds to see, especially if you ever get to see them in person, and you do get to see them in their large flocks. In Hoedspruit we have a field outside of town where they often tend to congregate, and it's quite pretty to see them all standing there foraging. Unfortunately, something has started our stalks. I think we are going to mosey on. We're going to head over to Olifants, since our stalks gave us the slip. That's quite pretty. A nice peaceful setting here on the Olifants. We have a crocodile peacefully basking, most definitely well aware of any potential prey maybe approaching. Never truly asleep or unaware. Quite a good hunting spot there. We can see it's quite close to the shallow water, but to its left there the deep water starts, so it's a perfect spot for the crocodile to start any ambushes or stalks from there. Obviously in shallow water it's very obvious to any prey, but with the deep water the favors very much on, or it favors much more the crocodile's hunting strategy. Question from Liam Taylor asking how many bird species have I seen on the webcams during my time. I must admit I actually haven't kept too much of a record of it, since we see so many different birds in different spots. It's probably something I should maybe keep a bit better track of. I'm worried that this impacts my live list on some of my apps, since some of the birds we have seen are not or would necessarily be lifers for me, but I'd prefer to see them in person with my own eyes. Another question from Jojo asking, how come African reptiles don't hibernate? So Jojo, that's not necessarily true. There are some reptiles in Africa that hibernate. Maybe it's in some cases a bit more different compared to hibernation per se in the northern hemisphere. In southern Africa, and especially the Lowveld near the Kruger, etc., where the temperatures don't really ever go down to the very cold temperatures, they will become much more sluggish or not as active. It's not necessarily 100% true hibernation. Some of them might not do much for the whole of the winter, but there are obviously areas where it is quite cold, and those reptiles in the interior of southern Africa where the temperatures get quite low will essentially hibernate. So yeah, they react to the environment then. Obviously crocodiles don't really inhabit any super cold areas in southern Africa, or Africa for that matter. But we are gonna move on and see what else is waiting for us. We've got some clowns here at King's Camp, and just a bit out of view. Off goes the monkey there, patrolling where next he can cause some chaos. Comment from Disco Dave that the Abdom stalk was live at the waterhole lifer for him. I think maybe that's what I should call it. Maybe not to look at it too stringently, but refer to them as live at the waterhole lifers. Well, I think our monkeys have moved on to continue with their monkey business. We're going to go over to the hide. There's some other birds waiting for us now. Oh, there we go. We've got quite a nice ensemble of different birds here. So we've got our 3 Abdom storks, some cattle egrets, and some hooded vultures. I assume something is maybe deceased in the area, or they've come to drink and clean themselves a bit. Also got some yellow-billed kites soaring in the background there. It's a pity those other hooded vultures didn't stay around longer. They were quite pretty with their red faces. This looks like a younger, more immature juvenile bird just hanging around. So we've also got an Egyptian goose. So we've managed to rack up 5 species in one camera. I'm not sure if there's 2 or 3 kites busy chasing one another there. Obviously a bit of a breeding scuffle going on. I know we have seen in the past 2 yellow-billed kites here at the waterhole mating, so I do think there is a resident pair here. So it might be what's causing the activity. No one seems to be too perturbed by the aerial acrobatics. There we've got our vultures back now. Looking very elegant and stately as they strut around. The hooded vulture is one of my favorite vultures. They're not, well, they're one of your smallest vulture species in Africa. They are a bit smaller, but don't disregard the fact that it's still quite a large bird. So we can see these 2 pink-faced individuals. They are adults. The white wool feathers on the back of their heads are kind of what signifies that, but it is interesting to note they can change the color of their face based on their moods. So that can come from a creamy white color all the way to this bright pink what we're seeing. And then those 2 other birds are juveniles. They've got that darker wool-like feathers on the back of their head. Bit of a scuffle there. So we can actually see how that younger bird's face seems to almost be changing a bit of a different shade, but interesting nonetheless to see these displays. One doesn't necessarily associate color changes with birds. It tends to be more with reptiles. suppose I do agree. It's quite a nice setting here to the hide. There's quite a bit going on. Nice to see the kites swooping around and all the other birds doing their things. I did also see a baboon for a second, but the birds are certainly the stars of today's show for now. Question from Molly: do birds show each other affection? Molly, I think certainly with mating pairs you'll see affection. Obviously, affection is a much more human emotion or human quality, but there does certainly appear to be a bond that breeding pairs share, and could certainly say they tolerate or they appreciate one another's presence much more. But of course it's always tough to apply feelings to that in such a biological nature or matter. But I think you see it often with parrots and eagles, etc., on their nests. Even with vultures you would see it on nesting sites. But I don't think it's 100% as similar as humans and our vast degrees of affection and emotions. But it is certainly much more developed than it would be in other animals, that's for sure. And see, we have Katuna Fatu watching from Cape Town. Hope you're enjoying the show. The weather does seem a bit funny in most of the southern hemisphere at the moment. Quite a bit of cloudy and windy weather, but not too much rain at the moment. I'm certainly anxiously awaiting a bit more rain in our area. The bush is starting to come alive, but I think we could use a fair bit more. But I'm sure it is on its way. Well, we're gonna pop on over to Founders. We'll probably come back here a bit later, but let's see what's waiting for us there. Yeah, also quite a peaceful Sunday session. We've got zebras, springbok, and some lazy rhinos to the left there. For a second I thought they were rocks, but rocks don't have ears and rocks don't move either. It's always nice to see our waterhole residents, the white rhinos here. It wouldn't be quite complete without them. Certainly very nice to see the springbok also grazing in the background there. I always just love the difference between essentially the springbok of South Africa's gazelle and the difference with the gazelles we get in East Africa that we often see at the Old Donyo camp. At first glance they all seem quite similar, but they do have their nuances and their slight differences. And I'm sure as many South African viewers would maybe agree, springboks are supreme because they are World Cup rugby winners, so that also makes them better. We had a blacksmith's lapwing swoop in there, just declaring his patch of waterhole territory. It looks like a curious young springbok. I mean, not necessarily young, but a a springbok ewe coming down to drink, or considering having a sip of water. They certainly have to be very cautious on the wake. They are quite small antelope, and they're on the menu for most predators, but at the same time they are incredibly quick and agile. I see we've got a pygmy rhinoceros, aka the warthog, coming down for a bit of a drink, and I assume a good old mud wallow.
This unfolds in front of you.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Woo! This is action-packed.
I get to wake up every morning and go out there and look for cats. I get to create my everyday safari for myself. I grew up in the sort of central eastern suburbs of Johannesburg, fully qualified trails guide and a fully qualified nature conservationist. I love the wild places. I love being in the wilderness. It's probably one of the best jobs I've ever had and probably ever could have.
This is unbelievable.
Oh, she's gonna catch it.
Come on, Tommy. Watch this, we're about to see a kill.
You can see how close he is from where I am.
Every month, something wild lands in your inbox. From rare sightings and behind-the-scenes secrets to expert stories, seasonal changes, and exclusive travel opportunities, the Wild Earth Journal is your free monthly mailer, packed with the magic of the wild straight from the field. It's fun, it's free, it's full of surprises. Sign up now on the Wild Earth website.
As us humans tend to, but I think it just depends on the conditions while they're drinking. But obviously they are sucking quite strongly to take up as much water as possible in a short amount of time, as they are quite vulnerable when they're drinking, so they need to drink quickly. I think these warthogs are the definition of comfortable right now. They look very, very happy in their mud there. It almost looks as if that zebra is questioning what this warthog is up to. Maybe silently judging how dirty the warthog is getting. But they're a bit more focused on getting something to drink here. I think these zebras at Mantis Founders Lodge are quite fortunate. They will never need to worry about crocodiles. I think there are many crocodiles in the Eastern Cape, and that goes back to probably the colder temperatures I'm not saying that they could not survive, but I don't think it's really ideal crocodile habitat. This warthog is working in a very good scratch on these conveniently located rocks around the waterhole. I think they really help get to those hard to reach spots. And off goes our piggy. Oh, things have quietened down here, and our rhinos are certainly still sleeping. We're going to pop over to the Mara for some East African wildlife. Well, this is quite a pretty setting with the elephants in the background here. And of course the giraffe. It's actually quite nice having such a high level view. The elephants almost look a bit small. And for once the giraffe seems to be intimidating the elephants, not the other way around. Also looking quite windy, but very nice and green in that part of the world. It seems like that younger elephant doesn't really know what to make of the giraffe approaching them. It's quite interesting to see this reaction from the elephants. We often see such a different reaction from them at Aldonio. I see this younger elephant's getting a bit cheeky with this giraffe. The giraffe doesn't seem to be too concerned. It's just tough to see a bit of the depth perspective's a bit off here, obviously just at the distance. But I think the giraffe is slightly nervous. Everyone's a bit nervous. But I think it's more down to the younger animals being a bit unfamiliar with the giraffe. The older cow didn't seem too concerned. On the topic of the changing seasons, Kim was mentioning in the chat that there's a typhoon approaching in the Philippines. Good luck with that. Batten down the hatches, I would say. We experience smaller hurricanes or typhoons as they're known on the eastern portion of South Africa near the Kruger Park. They come over from Mozambique. I haven't experienced the bad one yet, but it can get very bad, of course. In the previous couple of years there has been a localized flooding on the Mozambican coast, but it hasn't had any large negative disruptions the last couple of years. But yeah, Mother Nature is a force to be reckoned with. I don't think it should ever be taken for granted. A question from Neil asking what's the difference between the black rhino and the white rhino. Of course, always the age-old question. Your white rhino is much larger than your black rhino, almost about double the size. Your white rhino is exclusively a grazer, your black rhinos are browsers. Their lip shape indicates that, so your white rhino's got quite a square shaped mouth, which they use for cropping grasses and grazing. And your black rhinos have a pointed lip, almost a prehensile pointed lip, which they use for browsing. Yeah, the name is a bit misleading between white and black because it's got nothing to do with the color of their skin or anything like that. A rhino's skin color is determined by the mud it lies in. But the idea is that the name white rhino came from Dutch settlers years ago with the word wijd for wide mouth, maybe being corrupted to the term white. So that's probably where the names came in, and then by default the other rhino was referred to as the black rhino. The more correct name that people tend to use nowadays is your square-lipped rhinoceros and your hook-lipped rhinoceros, and there's no confusion. Well, we're going to leave our elephants to continue grazing in the wind here. We're going to go over to the Serengeti. Ooh, that's quite a stunning agama here for us. It almost looks like he's kept his shirt off for too long and has gotten sunburnt. But of course that's just his breeding colors. He's advertising himself to the ladies. Certainly quite striking compared to our blue-headed tree agama in southern Africa. They are very stunning lizards. They do get a few of their color changing traits. They are closely related to chameleons, but it is interesting how they can change their colors. Of course in this situation that they don't change colors for camouflage. It's to advertise their suitability and attract the mate, so they want to look as impressive as possible. As you can see, this fellow is quite acrobatic and he disappeared quite rapidly. See, he's really advertising himself, bobbing up and down there on the rocks. He's probably got some prime real estate here. doing some reading up on this agama. Not too familiar with them because we don't get them in South Africa, but it's known as the Mwanzana flat-headed rock agama. And I was giggling, there's another name for them also called the Spider-Man agama, kind of due to their coloration. I enjoy that name quite a bit. I think it's very accurate. Spider-Man agama is definitely a fitting and apt name for this species. Mike with a question asking what triggers the agamas to change color. So as we were discussing earlier, it's mainly just the males showing off or with a dominance display or courtship display. Obviously, there's quite a few different agamas, so I think it does differ from species to species. This red male is obviously also blending in a bit with the color of the rocks where he is found. But yeah, when they're not showing off, then they tend... Sorry, let me put it this way. The southern rock agama we get in South Africa tends to be a browner color, but his head will go blue when he's showing off to females. And when he's not focusing on that or he's lost his perch, he will lose that color and he'll go back to his drab brown color, so he can blend in again. I'm not entirely sure with this species of agama what his true original color is. He seems quite fully dedicated to his entire costume, so we may find he doesn't change color completely. I would wager that the females will be quite drab or not as colorful, so they will focus more on blending in and keeping themselves out of harm's way. Well, we're going to leave our colourful Spider-Man look-alike and head over to Founders. Looked like just before we left, our lizard was hunting for some flies. He was quite acrobatic there. I see the rhinos. I think we maybe missed the extra two that were lying here. I thought there was only two. But I see there's quite a gathering or crash of rhinos, as we know. A few of them in the shade and a few others working on their suntan. but certainly living the life as rhinos, just taking it easy and letting the day go by. Sorry about that, we quickly shot back. Our Garma seems to have caught a beetle or a type of bee perhaps. Just before we moved over I did see him trying to hunt for a fly, but it seems like he's caught something else instead. A bit of a Sunday light. It does look like a wasp. He seems to have got it down without any worry for the stinger or anything. That's a bit of a quick Sunday lunch for him. It does seem like he's negotiating the stinging section of the abdomen a bit more carefully, but it seems to have gone down without a problem. Could maybe put that one down as my first alive at the waterhole kill. I know the predators have eluded me generally, but at least we've seen a kill take place. I have definitely seen hyenas once, but no cats yet. At least the Garma was on top form today, and between his courtship dances and his hunting prowess. Well, I think our Garma's clearly always on the move here, but I think we'll look at moving on to the hide again and see what's waiting for us there. Certainly quite a gathering today at the hide. Baboon troopers always on duty. I did for a moment see a kite swoop past. Baboons are racing off now. I'm not sure what's... That's probably actually just the young ones messing around a bit. Melanistic marble, you were mentioning that there was a raptor a few days ago that they were struggling to identify. I must definitely go have a look at a few of the previous streams. It would be interesting. I think that's always the fun part of bird watching, when you get a tough one to identify and then you have to kind of step back and use all your field guides and different information topics to try figure out what or who the culprit is. I know a lot of bird watchers tend to avoid the difficult brown or LBJs as they call them, but it can be quite exciting when you are a birding addict to try to figure it out. Alison with a question: are there birds of prey strong enough to kill a baboon? Alison, yes, certainly there are. I don't think a fully grown male baboon, and maybe pushing it for a fully grown female baboon, but it could take place. But there are definitely eagles that could kill a young baboon, and I do think to an extent maybe a female, relatively grown up female baboon, but your culprits would be a black eagle or probably a martial eagle. It's just dependent on the weight and size, but at the same time I do think it could still kill it. It might not just be able to carry it off necessarily. But your martial eagle is known for capturing and hunting impala lambs, and your black eagle is also quite close in that size category. I do know your martial black eagles. There's also the crowned eagle, more in forested habitats of Africa, but they readily hunt vervet monkeys. Obviously the size between a vervet monkey and a baboon is quite different, but if they're capable of catching monkeys, I do think they would take the opportunity to maybe grab a baboon if they can. Of course, baboons are just a fair bit more dangerous. They tend to fight back. But I do certainly think it is something that could happen to a younger or smaller baboon. You can see these baboons are hard at work foraging for things to eat. It's obviously not quite easy for them at this part of the seasonal change. Everything's not green, and so they are still scrabbling around a bit looking for things to eat, insects, roots and tubers. But yeah, I wouldn't say the full, well, we can see the bush is not too green yet, so there's still a bit of a job to look for enough to eat at the moment. But baboons are incredibly resourceful, and part of their success is their varied diet of from meat to vegetation and fruits. It's quite useful in the African bush. It allows you to adapt as is needed. Well, we're going to leave our baboons alone a bit. I see there's chaos as usual. We're going to go enjoy some elephants at Tembe. It's stunning to see the elephants here at Tembe, one of my favorite spots to enjoy them. You see we've also got a jacana sneaking along the side of the water's edge, looking quite confident and colourful. I was reading up now, but baboons are a confirmed dietary food item for baboons are a dietary item of martial eagles, so my intuition was right on that one. That must be quite a sight to ever see that happen. I have seen once a martial eagle capture a mongoose. Obviously that's not huge, but still very impressive to catch a mammal like that. And see, we've got our ever-present pair of woolly-necked storks patrolling and looking for tidbits to eat. Certainly looking quite pretty at tempe at the moment, nice and green. I'm sure it's quite warm at the moment as well.
Oh, wow. What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
The bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold, a mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Down or swinging around, they are not bothered. But if that tail becomes straight as an antenna, you need to be careful. Well, we're going to leave our peaceful Ellies here and go over to Tembo Plains. Ooh, that's very cool. We've got a purple heron. We are really doing well on the different bird species today. And this purple heron is quite a effective and proficient hunter. And see, we've also got a very sneaky crocodile waiting in the background. I'd like to see if our heron manages to capture something. And this heron looks almost as still as a reed in the water. And clearly him and the crocodile know there are either fish in here or some amphibians, but I have my opinion that there's probably some small fish hiding away in the reeds. I did see a bit of water disturbance next to the crocodile, so it might also be catfish lurking on the edge, also trying to catch some food. Micah, you are asking why is it called a purple heron when they are not purple? Yeah, just a good example of why a name is just a name. It's not always the most accurate, but there is a patch on their shoulder that is purple, so I would hazard a guess that's the reason why they are known as the purple heron. I think there could be more accurate names. But yeah, that is the bird I've known over the years. Don't hold your breath either. Its name could also change in a year or two. Birds often get new names or their names are revised. As always, scientific or taxonomic names tend to be much more stable. They don't often change. But your common names are prone to a lot of changing as different research separates or designate certain species. But yeah, it is a bit of a funny name. I wouldn't say it's the most representative. You can kind of see a bit of that purple patch, but it's not super prominent. If I just count off my fingers, I think we're probably on at least about 12 or so different bird species, but I'd have to count a bit more carefully. Maybe about 10, but still very interesting and different birds. Nothing too ordinary. So it's always nice to see these different birds and their habitats around the waterhole. Penelope, you're mentioning that you saw a purple heron at the river mouth near where you stay in KZN. Yeah, that's definitely an area one would find them. It's quite interesting the way this one is standing out. So they look a little similar to the Goliath heron. Obviously there's just size differences and marking differences, but generally your purple heron is quite reclusive or shy and tends to hide more in reeds and stuff. But obviously this is a good example of a bird doing the opposite of what it normally does. And we can see it standing relatively in the open here. But they are quite a pretty heron. I enjoy always watching them. They can keep incredibly still for long periods of time, as most herons tend to do. But I always feel like the purple heron takes the cake when it comes to being ready to strike. Certainly quite nice seeing all the different birds we are seeing at the moment. I think it's obviously mirroring the seasonal changes that we're seeing as all the waterholes and the bush around them starts to come to life a bit. See the birds also capitalize on this. I think that's why I'll forever be a big fan of bird watching. There's so much to enjoy, and it just opens the doors to nature up even more. As much as it's a waiting game for a heron, I'm also sitting here with bated breath hoping we're going to see it catch something. But yeah, that's the, the trick. Either be patient or you just get lucky and you see it all of a sudden. But they are generally quite successful hunters. I think their success rates are generally quite high. You can also see another smaller croc in the background there. But I'm sure there's plenty of amphibians and fish in these, or in this aquatic vegetation here in the shallows. In the spirit of bird watching, I think we are going to pop over to Safari Hook to see another visitor we don't often see too often. I'm really hoping this heron now doesn't catch something, but let's go over to Safari Hook. And there we go, we've got our ostrich here at Safari Hook. Not something we see too often. I think the last time I saw ostrich was maybe a cow. Oh, there we go. We just saw that coming in and can see the crocodiles now scrambling onto land to try grab this fish the heron has caught. I don't think the heron is planning on sharing, but this is exciting. That's very funny. That's typical. One would almost think it happened because we hopped over to go look at an ostrich. I did see it for a second that it appeared to be a bit of a large fish, but that's just how the cookie crumbles in the African bush. We can see at the top of the screen there the fish flapping around. It's certainly a fairly large fish that this heron has caught. That is just so exciting, and especially with the crocodile's dedication to try steal it. I wonder if it's lost it now. Can't see too well. I think the crocodile may have pirated the... No. Our heron's got it. And the crocodile's given up. Crocodile's gone in there under the trees. For a second I did see our heron has still got the fish in its mouth to the right there. Looks like some type of bream or tilapia fish. But it's not a small fish. It's going to be interesting how this heron is going to slowly get that down its throat. Certainly think it's able to. Oh, crocodiles coming out of... Well, that was a bit of excitement, and I do think our heron managed to maintain its meal there. I think it's disappeared a bit into the branches there to eat its meal in peace. You can see it at the top there. Obviously it wants to get away from the hungry crocodiles. Yeah, no, there it's swallowing its meal. You can see it's slowly negotiating it down the hatch. But yeah, the bird outsmarted the crocodiles there. Let's just pop over to Safari Hook. We'll see if our ostrich is still there, but luckily we caught up with the action here. There we go. Our male ostrich is looking quite stunning, and there's a few oryx and the eland trotting away. But yeah, as I was saying, it's actually nice to see our ostrich a bit more up close on the camera. The last time I can think of was at Tau, and even then it was a bit far away and it didn't stay long. I think the elephants hurried it along its way, so it's nice to see this ostrich posing a bit for us. The world's largest flightless bird. We're going to quickly pop over to Simbavati. There's a little surprise in store for us there. There we go, some elephant playtime here at the waterhole. A few little babies. Everyone's looking very content. This youngster's getting to grips with its trunk. Doesn't seem too competent with it, but certainly trying his best. Just following up from Spaz, I don't know if everyone necessarily saw the action with the heron and the crocodile, but so that crocodile we saw running onto land, our heron grabbed a tilapia or breamfish and quickly made a beeline out of the water with its fish, and the crocodile was hot on its heels. Obviously the splashing and the commotion caught the crocodile's attention, but yeah, the crocodile went on land to try chase the heron off and grab the fish, or it would obviously catch the heron. And then it appears as if the heron went up into the tree. Obviously one's got the advantage if you can fly, and yeah, the crocodile lost out there while the heron enjoyed its meal up in the trees. But yeah, just goes to show you how quickly a scene can change. It would have been quite possible that the heron didn't capture anything, but yeah, it's funny, if we waited a little bit longer we may have actually seen it catch the fish. But we did catch a bit of the excitement. So far we are on for 2 kills today on live at the waterhole. That was certainly exciting. Question from Said Bear asking if elephant calves use their moms as umbrellas. I think they certainly do. At times when it's quite hot and there's not shade, you will sometimes see young elephant calves sleeping on the ground in the shade their mothers provide, or they will try to get a bit of respite away from the sun. Actually, yesterday I watched a documentary where they were doing just that. There was a couple of elephant cows gathered around a tree to get some shade, and the youngsters were sleeping in the middle underneath the elephant cows, obviously capitalizing on that bit of shade that they're being provided with. So just one of the benefits of being young and small until you get bigger, and then you have to embrace the difficulties of life. We've got quite a few more elephants coming in for a drink now. And so everyone's approaching with a fair amount of calm. No chaos as of yet at the waterhole. I think most of these females will know each other or be distant relatives, and they more than likely knew there was another herd approaching. So the low communications they make between each other. Quite a proper pool party going on here at Simbavati. But that's a nice thing when you've got a large water source like this. The elephants can properly wade in and swim around a bit and make the most of it. You can actually still see some more elephants in the background, so I think there's quite a few on their way. And just always a peaceful and nice relaxing scene to enjoy. Wow, there's quite a few elephants now approaching. We went from about 4 or 5 elephants, I think, now to easily about 30 or so. Everyone's capitalizing on the fun at the waterhole. Of course, elephants are always pretty much guaranteed at a waterhole by about midday. You can always count on them to be near the water. Makes sense if you're such a large brown grey coloured mammal, you'll be baking in the sun by midday, so the best way is to head to water to cool off a bit and take a bit of a mud bath, and then continue feeding when it's a bit cooler. We're gonna hop over to Serendela. There's another pool party going on there, not too far from here, but let's go see how that's going. Oh yeah, well no, the Serendela camera often gets quite into the action. You can actually see it's got some water and mud on the lens cover there. But as always, a proper party going on here. Our hippo is lying dead still and going unnoticed. It's always interesting for me here at Serendela how much the elephants really splash around. It looks like there was a bit of a problem with the feed there. We come back to our original pool party at Simbavati. I think you could certainly make a party invite for that Simbavati pool party. It rhymes quite nicely. Obviously the elephants here at Simbavati are a bit more well behaved. Everyone is calmly and gently cooling themselves off. It doesn't seem to be getting too out of hand or wild.
Hello, I'm James Hendry, and I'd like to take you on a very different kind of safari through the wild heart of Madagascar. In Underseabear, we'll track the Indri's eerie call through misty rainforest. Then it's east on to Masuala, where lemurs leap through the jungle, coral reefs glow beneath the waves, and adventure waits around every bend. Come, let's explore it together.
Best sighting I've presented. I found myself with wild dogs. We chased the dogs around, chased them around. They ate an impala. We got the end of that. Then another impala went into Gowrie Dam down the road there, and the wild dogs went around. Eventually the impala came close to the bank. One wild dog went and grabbed it and then just pulled it out and just did what wild dogs do. It was an emotional experience, but it was very, very special.
Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow, that was amazing, everybody. Out here, every wild moment counts, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you will not miss out. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7, and you can even rewind if you have missed out on something. Enjoy the behind-the-scenes video clips as well as fireside chat, or get the early offers on our travel experiences. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
Well, see, our elephants have finished their pool party for the day. It was quite a wonderful sighting. We're going to go over to Founders for a few more wonderful sightings. Of course, we've got a baby rhino sleeping against his mother's bottom or buttocks. Obviously trying to avoid the wind as best they can. Seems like his mother also wants actually a bit of space, and she's moving over a bit. But certainly having as much as what you could call a rhino cuddle. Question from James Hotham: if different elephant families come to the same waterhole, would they try to force the other group away? Well, not necessarily. You tend to, sometimes another group will leave, but you don't generally see aggression between different elephant breeding herds. There's sometimes a bit of excitement as they see each other, but you will sometimes see the other ones just leaving or getting away, but it's not often. You actually often see them integrating, and times there's actually squeals and screams of excitement between the different elephants. So they do seem to enjoy integrating with one another and then going on their merry way. I've sat a couple times at waterholes in the Kruger watching different elephant herds come together, and they don't seem to mind too much, if not enjoy it slightly. Mickey, you'd like to know if rhinos' eyes are at the side or the front of their heads. It's at the side, as with most herbivores. Their eyes tend to be at the sides of their faces. It gives them better vision for detecting predators or dangers. It's generally predators that have forward-facing eyes. It's a pity in this example we actually can't see this rhino calf very well to illustrate that point, but yeah, nonetheless, your herbivores generally have their eyes located on the sides of their faces. It gives them a better field of view. The rhinos are certainly doing what the rhinos do best. It appears like it's two cows with their calves, although I must say the one on the left, her calf appears to be a bit large to still be suckling, but it seems like his mother is still tolerating it for now. Obviously when she gets another calf she may start to wean her calf, but for now he can still enjoy the good times. Anyway, we're going to leave our rhinos to their laziness and head over to Wangi for some more bird excitement. Oh wow, this is quite stunning. We've got crowned cranes here at Wangi. The hide has certainly been quite fantastic today with all the different birds we've seen. Actually got a kite in the background with these cranes, but truly striking and beautiful birds. Actually surprised how many different birds we've seen here today at the hide. Very fortunate with all our sightings, that's for sure. interesting to note, this is the full name of this bird, sorry, is the grey crowned crane. There is a different species found further up in Africa, but yeah, the grey crowned crane is relatively restricted to parts of the Cape in southern Africa, and then of course here in Wangi. So also quite a rare sighting. It's not a bird you see very often or just all the time. They are incredibly pretty birds though. I do love their fuzzy hairdos and their striking facial features. Nathan asking what are their cranes made from? I assume you're referring probably more to their crests. So it's obviously a specialized type of feather. It's not their normal flight feathers, but it will be a modified, specially adapted type of feather atop their head that gives them that unique and striking crest. Yeah, I think it's very well suited to their unique look they have. You can see they're very hard at work foraging along the water's edge here. Cranes are incredibly versatile. Almost anything is on the menu for them. They'll eat tubers, seeds, leaves, fish, frogs, lizards, rodents, snails, insects, and worms. So they are very adaptive, and I think hence why they are patrolling around the hide here. So there's a number of things available for them to eat. They look so elegant just strutting around here. And we also had a guinea fowl for a split second. We're doing quite well on our different selection of birds that have been present. It seems like our cranes have taken to the high ground here, looking very elegant, but as they're starting to move a bit further away, we're going to head over to Founder's Lodge again. Well, you can see our rhinos have come down for a bit of a drink and a good old mud bath. Certainly a nice way to spend the Sunday. So, question coming in from Johannes. You're saying you hear they've got bad eyesight. Is it the same for the black rhino as well? So to my knowledge, obviously rhino's eyesight is not incredibly well developed, but the big reason for their poor eyesight was when white rhinos were, or nearly went extinct or were incredibly endangered. It bottlenecked the gene pool, and one of the unfortunate side effects of the gene pool when it was that small, bad eyesight became a bit of a genetic defect essentially, and that's what led to a lot of white rhinos having poorer eyesight. It was quite interesting the first time I learned about it. I was actually quite skeptical. I always just thought rhinos don't have good eyesight, but that's actually one of the compounding factors that further affected it. In general though, I don't think most rhinos have great eyesight, or it's not highly developed. Their sense of smell and their sense of hearing is very acute. So I do think black rhinos don't have the best sight of mammals, but it's interesting to note there are other factors. It's not just a coincidence. James Hotham with a question. You were asking why are many birds very colorful, yet animals like elephant or rhino are just one dull color. James, I think it comes down to the fact that birds rely on a lot of visual communication between one another, especially when it comes to attracting a mate. So they tend to rely on these bright colors to look striking and stand out. Also, between all the different species, birds sometimes look similar, but it's these different colors between similar looking species that differentiate them. And that's also what birds sometimes rely on. I mean, among a host of other factors, obviously each bird has a unique call, but yeah, birds rely a lot more on visual communication, are much more perceptive to colors, and their eyesight is quite well developed. While mammals do have decent eyesight, they tend to rely a lot more on pheromone signaling, or they rely a lot more on the sense of smell. So obviously in that regard, having eyesight, and especially as we were discussing with the rhinos not really having the best of eyesight, if that was a thing they relied on heavily, it would really hold them back. Whereas a sense of smell gives them a lot more information about who's possibly walking around their territory, smelling for predators or danger. And yeah, so in that case, they wouldn't really rely too much on visual cues or coloration to find a mate or figure out other information. They would put a lot more effort or focus with hearing and smell. Question from Ashley James regarding the crowned cranes. You'd like to know if they mate for life. So yeah, generally they do form long-term mating bonds or lifetime mating bonds. Obviously if one of the partners passes away or something happens to one of them, they will remate or make a new bond. But yes, they are known for having long-term lifetime mating bonds with one another. It's probably one of the more fairy tale examples. It was thought to be true for a lot of birds, but it's not necessarily always the case. Certain birds will often have many different partners, but cranes tend to, well, they do have the same long-term bond. I think it ties in a bit more with the amount of care they provide their chicks and how many chicks they raise at a time, so they put a lot more effort in, which requires obviously quite a tightly knit, focused bond to provide that extra level of care to raise one's offspring. Danny, you'd like to know why do rhino rib cages show despite them being so big? I think it's just a bit more of a case of the anatomy and the physiology. Rib cages in extreme cases can show malnutrition or the condition of an animal, but in general it's generally more if animals' hips are are really sticking out. That's the most obvious one. It's the same for a lot of bigger animals, zebras or horses actually for that matter. But I think it just has to do with their anatomy. I don't think it's necessarily a case of their size or anything. It's the same for a lot of other antelope. Sometimes you can see their ribs, sometimes you can't. But it can be quite deceptive, whereas hips are much more indicative of an animal's nutritional status or its health. And that goes across the board for many animals, elephants, rhinos, buffaloes, etc. The amount with which the hips protrude tells you a lot of what is going on. I must say, with anything though, I think rhinos often don't always show their condition too well, and bad droughts, they can often a few members of a population in a drought-stricken area can be quite negatively affected. I remember a few years ago when there was a drought in the Kruger National Park, and unfortunately and sadly quite a few rhinos that didn't make it through the drought, and it's quite sad in a crisis like that where rhinos are so endangered and pressured. Everyone that is lost is a big loss to the population. But of course it's not necessarily possible to go and feed all these different animals in a large wild spot. It looks like we've got a rhino right against the camera here. That's quite exciting. This is quite a treat for a Sunday. Such a nice up-close, eye-to-eye view with this rhino here. You can see it's scraping its horn against the bank of the water. Wow, this is quite a unique close-up view. I don't think most people have the opportunity to see. Certainly looking quite curious. Well, quite curious to know if how aware the rhino is about the camera here, but to be honest, it seems a lot more focused on scratching its horn against the embankment here. It's probably got a bit of an itch there that it's dealing with on the front of its nose. It's interesting to see the textures and the hair-like substance. It really gives a good example that the horns of a rhino are not true horn at all. As many people always point out, it is keratin, or the same material as your fingernails and your hair, and it's just a fallacy. People saying there's unique properties to a rhino's horn. It's all false. The only animal the only thing that needs a horn is a rhino. Nobody else needs a horn. Looks like the rhino bull has moved away a bit. He's still rubbing his horn and smelling around. I'm not sure if he's maybe eyeing one of the rhino cows in the background there. Seems to be playing it strategically. These rhinos certainly have the high life here at Founders Lodge. It's a perfectly suited waterhole for their needs. And they look.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh! Woo! This is action-packed.
My full name is Mpho Tikani. I grew up in Soweto. My first animal that I filmed said to dog. Okay, no, it's my first animal that I filmed, I think it was an impala. Best sighting ever, I would say it was actually this year, 2024. But it was this Cedric when we had Mulwati and TP on a warthog kill. I think we have to cut it.
That is brilliant.
Ria, you say the best kind of roadblock? Absolutely. Look at this.
Hello, girls.
Out here, every moment counts. As a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel ad-free 24/7 and rewind if you want to catch something again. Enjoy behind the scenes videos, fireside chats and early access to travel offers. It's the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
For any possible lions. But I must say, it's not an animal that we often see at Tembe. Quite a stunning specimen of a male giraffe. We can see how he's bald on the top of his ossicones or horns, but ossicones are the correct term for their unique horns. It's bald from all the fighting with other males, whereas females will have fluffy projections on top. Well, our giraffe has made a split for it. I'm gonna head over to Tao quickly. I see the lawnmower squad is in full force today, keeping the lodge's lawn nice and short and neat. Of course, also a few birds moving about in the aquatic vegetation and grass here. Looks like moorhens. But I guess it does drive home the example of how shallow the water is here. It sometimes looks a bit deeper than it is, but it's actually not too deep. It's always quite interesting. We never really see the elephants get into the water here towel like they do in other locations. They will partake in a mud bath, but they don't really venture deep into the water here. Very peaceful scene. The only question I have in my head is where any of the crocodiles are possibly lurking. I always think that crocodiles here at Tau are certainly more than big enough to go for or target one of the waterbuck when they venture in here, and obviously with all this vegetation and the depth of the water is definitely shallow, or sorry, deep enough for a crocodile to hide in. But maybe the crocodiles are focused on other things. It is of course always a bit hard to see the crocodiles. They tend to hide and make themselves too well seen or well known here. Leopard lover, you would like to know which is my favorite location in Africa to visit. Hands down, it would have to be the Kruger National Park. I have a very deep love and appreciation for the Kruger Park, but I've had the privilege of being to some of these locations that we enjoy on the show. But yeah, the Kruger Park is definitely my favorite spot to go. I spend a lot of time visiting different areas of the park and camping there, and it's the best place on earth in my opinion. But it's quite cool to see other locations. It'd be nice to go to Pilanesberg, for example. Tembe I've been to. It's nice to see all these different locations with your own eyes. But yeah, 10 times out of 10 I would choose to go to the Kruger National Park. Can see how effortless it is for the waterbuck to move around in the swampy habitat. Certainly just an example of how they are adapted more for this type of lifestyle. I think if any other antelope attempted to do it, they would eventually get a bit stuck or struggle. The waterbuck are just perfectly suited for the swampy conditions. Lenny, you'd like to know where I would like to visit that I haven't been. Definitely the Serengeti or the Masai Mara. I'd love to see that part of the world. It's on the bucket list still. But yeah, at least the cameras give us a good idea of what you're aiming for. So one day I'd like to see there. But on reflection, I must say we've really had a good show today, with a lot of beautiful sightings and with all the different locations, even a bit of excitement once or twice. And of course the bird watching has been through the roof. We've seen some very interesting species and interactions. But once again, thanks to everyone from my side. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. Hope it's been insightful and relaxing. Hope you have a peaceful afternoon drive and enjoy it very much. I think this will probably be the last bit of the show, but yeah, hope everyone's enjoyed it, and thanks again. I look forward to seeing everyone in the not too distant future. And obviously our local lawn mowers also send their regards.